the Spurs News Podcast, your home for all things Tottenham Hotspur. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of the Spurs News Podcast. I am Sam. Joining me today to discuss all the latest happenings in the world of Tottenham Hotspur, it's nobody. It's just me. Hello. Thank you to everyone who messaged in with sort of offers of, will jump on and be a guest host with me. I'm not ignoring you. It's not like an on-purpose thing of like, no, thank you. It's a case of timings, and I often, due to being magically self-employed, which, you have that kind of, hey, you're self-employed, you're your own boss. Anyone listening who's self-employed knows that that's just not the case. So yeah, often I can't set a kind of like, hey, this is the recording window, because 9 times out of 10 I get to that window and something happens and I have to move it, which is inconvenient for people who know me. It's a downright pain in the ass for people who don't know me. So it's not a case of that. It's just, it's not a case of me shunning people. But anyway, today it's transpired. It's just me by myself. I took a week off last week. Now, I could have done a show. Me and Polynesian Dan lined one up. I had to cancel at the last minute due to a few things with work. He was at work himself, so, it was a bit problematic. But genuinely, I think I needed a week off, which isn't... it doesn't sound a very taxing thing to do, does it? You do a podcast talking about the football club you support and love. There shouldn't really be a reason where I need time off from that, but I found increasingly it just being very depressing. Running the Facebook page, doing the podcast means I tend to watch every minute of every game. And there is not a lot of joy in that at the moment. And last season, Europa League victory aside, there wasn't a lot of joy in a lot of that. Although I did have a better understanding of problems and things, and kind of felt very, very frustrated at the club ownership a lot last season. Did lose patience with Ange at one point, because I felt he was being overtly stubborn in the face of, in the face of really needing to make changes, but his stubbornness proved to be correct. It could have easily gone the other way, but it wasn't, so I had to hold my hands up and say, okay, yeah, no, you were right to dig in. This season has been abjectly awful, really. I can't, like last season there were a lot of high points, even in the league. Like there were some really incredible games, some really incredible victories. It was like when it clicked, it really clicked. And this season I'm watching us and it's like, it's clicked a couple of times the way he wants us to play, and it's still shite. Like it is really not good to watch in any shape or form. So yeah, I needed the week off. The most recent games have been Sunderland at home, and as I record this, Bournemouth away last night. I mean, where do I start? Sunderland at home, we were, without looking amazing, we were in control of that game. Sunderland had probably the poorest first half I've seen them have this season. I've watched a few of their games. But we were 1-0 up, really looked in control. Like I said, although we didn't look good, we didn't look like we were under threat at all. It is incredibly frustrating to watch us, because it felt to me, which I don't know how anyone else feels, if you looked at the league table, where we were, where Sunderland were at kickoff, it looked like a newly promoted team were facing one of the top sides in the Premier League, and they were trying everything they could to come away with something. The problem is we are supposed to be one of the best sides in the Premier League, or one of the bigger sides, and they are the newly promoted team. And the league places suggest that's a reversal, and the mentality of our club has become the reversal. Under Thomas Frank, our whole mentality is an underdog, and he keeps doing it. Like every press conference, he's running us down. You know, he's dismissing the club constantly in this kind of, yeah, but, you know, might have done some good things in the past, but 17th last season, you know, we're crap. I mean, it's a complete anomaly last season, brought about by circumstances that really shouldn't be being repeated, and really shouldn't be, there shouldn't be a hangover from it. It should have been a kicking on point from the Europa League victory. However, it's just not proving to be that. So the Sunderland game frustrated me. We did get a point, yay, against a newly promoted side at home. I mean, there's nothing to celebrate there, really. There really isn't. But yet, we seem to be happy with that. Thomas Frank praised the performance, okay. And then we go away to Bournemouth. All the way into this, Bournemouth haven't won in so many games. Tottenham's away form is excellent. So, I mean, I'm kind of expecting us to lose. You know, the old Dr. Tottenham thing. We go 1-0 up. And that was our first goal from open play in nearly 10 hours of football. It took a deflection. Wasn't the greatest shot. I saw it happen live and thought, wow, well done. And then I saw the replay a few times. I was like, yeah, that was kind of not the best hit shot that went in off someone's ankle. They all count the same. But I was just delighted for Tell. I like Matty's Tell, and, you know, him doing that off the left, and, you know, sometimes they need to go in off people's asses, you know, it doesn't matter. That happening can sometimes lift the player as well, so I was delighted for him. But again, there's no control in how we play. There's no, even when you look at possession stats and it's like, oh, Tottenham have had a decent amount of possession, we're not controlling the game. It's just sort of like by circumstances side maybe stands off us for a little bit. The constant knock it long, the constant bypass of midfield, the near constant just giving the ball away. I mean, there was an insane stat which I saw, which was that Rodrigo Bentancur gave the ball away 5 times in the first half, and yet he retained possession better than any other Tottenham player. That's an insane stat. Like, that is absolutely bonkers. I think the fair result for the game would have been a draw. I don't think Bournemouth did looked that much better than us. But what I will say is they have a system and a structure that they all slot in and out of. It doesn't matter the name on the back of the shirt. The way they play is the way they play, and the players all know it. They all know their roles, and they come on and off, and, you know, they slot in. The script was written for Semenyo to score the goal. A massive Arsenal fan that rejected us, and he's joining Man City to score the winner. Decent goal. I mean, you just, it is frustrating. Frustration boiled over. The away fans had enough. Mickey van der Ven appears to be telling one away fan who clearly said something to him to come and say it to his face. Personally, I think whoever that fan is shouldn't do that, because Mickey's a fucking unit. And then Paulinho has the same conversation, it would seem, with the same fan. So whoever that is clearly had a lot to say for himself. I'm always torn on this, because same as any fan, am unbelievably frustrated and wound up. And I think if the away fans, more than anyone, have a right to be angry when the side seemingly are playing this badly consistently, because yes, you know, the players are all still human, like, you know, regardless of money and stuff like that, but they are insanely well paid individuals who are being supported by the vast majority there, probably earn less in a year what a lot of those players earn in a week. And yet they are travelling all over the country every night of the week for kickoff times that are moved and adjusted, and then got to travel all the way back for work the next day. Those players are going to go in and have a nice cushy rehab session, watch the game back, go into training. The fans, for example, are straight back to whatever their jobs are. And look, football's in a bubble, and I know that. There's no point doing this whole financial comparison. Oh, you were in this, therefore you should be this. That doesn't work for me. But my point on it is like the fans, when the away fans are angry, they are the ones who are for me anyway, the kind of the litmus test, the benchmark. They're the ones that are rock solid. They're the most devoted, the hardcore, the ones that if you lose them, you really are struggling. Now, last season, Ange and the players had issues with the away fans, but hilariously won them back. Like, lost them for probably about 2-3 weeks, and then I think through effort and a European victories won them back over. At the moment, the away fans and the home fans, the minute Thomas Frank walks over to applaud them, are booing. They've had enough of the crap they're seeing. They've had enough of the crap they're hearing from him. And the players are competitors. You don't become a professional athlete in any field without having a competitive streak in you that drives you. When you lose, it is emotional anger. It's going to be there. I think Mickey van der Ven at full time was a very, very frustrated man who feels he should have had a penalty. It's an interesting one, that. I'm just going to discuss that in isolation. The initial challenge on him, if he goes down on that one, I think it's a penalty that doesn't get overturned. But he tried to stay on his feet because I think he thought he was in, and then obviously tries to take the next contact, which was minimal, and quite rightly the referee, when he looked at it, overturned it. That's one I wouldn't want to be given against us, for example. So I gotta say, yeah, that was fair. But anyway, Mickey was wound up. The fans were wound up. Following the game, QT, the club captain, went in a bit two-footed on the ownership and senior management. He didn't go in on Thomas Frank. I wouldn't ever expect him to. I wouldn't ever expect the player to do that, because that's insane for your career. Calling out the hierarchy, though, this is probably the second, maybe third time he's done that. He is the club captain now, though. So for me, it does carry a little bit more weight. Be interesting to see what they do, because last season, when he called them out, they fined him 2 weeks' wages. So this is a new structure, of course. The Lewis family, Vinay, the Gooner. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess. At the time of recording this, which is 11:30 in the AM on Thursday, the 8th of January, I will just double check this as I'm doing it. Thomas Frank is still our manager, sadly. Yeah, they've not fired him yet. Now, we get into this podcast on a regular basis, emails, messages, and obviously we do a thing where we put out like, hey, any questions, any thoughts, any comments, and we do that fairly regularly to go to Facebook, Instagram pages, and people put stuff in, and we've got like theme tunes for certain people who comment all the time. So just a quick opportunity to say thank you to everybody who does that, everyone who contributes to the show, be it with a question, feedback, comments, discussion. We really appreciate it, because it's just fellow Tottenham fans all having a chat. I always think of it as this sort of sitting in a pub, which we could all do with a beer right now. Stupid dry January, boy, am I regretting that. And, you just kind of chat and talk things through. And sometimes it can offer a different perspective, and you can sort of go, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll give that guy another chance. Yeah, maybe that player isn't as bad as I thought. Oh, okay, maybe Thomas Frank, chewing with his mouth open all the time isn't as annoying as I think it is. By the way, it is. But anyway, one of the things I don't do on a regular basis is actually go into the emails, because we get 10, 20 a week, people generally conversational, and I tend to just reply to them and just have the conversations. And then I thought to myself, well, over the Christmas and New Year, we had a fair few come in, which were like in amongst, like, you know, hope you have a good Christmas, stuff like that. There were questions in them. And I thought, well, I'm going to go through them, I'm going to compile them, and I picked out 10. So I'm going to go through them now as like discussion points, and that's going to be this week's show. Next week, Step In Super Sub Stefan returns from his Hollybobs. I literally call it that because he hates it. So that'll be fun. We'll get back into the show as regular then for the rest of the season. I heard from him a couple of times whilst he's away. He's been enjoying the break from Tottenham, but because, like all of us, he's a fan and a bit addicted to the club, he does consistently check and is consistently sending messages like, what the is going on? Anyway, so question number 1 that was sent in to me says, do you feel vindicated about Frank? That is from a lady called Stacey, who is in Leeds. Hello, Stacey. Do I feel vindicated? It's a difficult one. I'll tell you why it's difficult. I don't feel vindicated. I don't feel like... Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't say it the way I meant to say it, or perhaps people heard me just being vitriolic. I don't think initially I went in on him for anything that it wasn't fair. What I mean is, I was trying to say to people, I don't like him. Like, not as in like, oh my God, I've seen this guy, he's the worst manager in the world. It was he as an individual. Every time I hear him speak on an interview, and I'd seen quite a few, I just didn't like the guy. And so it was like in an instant, and I think this is what I was trying to say initially, which is I have that initial bias feeling of I don't like him. Therefore, I was struggling with, is that the reason I have all of these question marks over his appointment? Because Stefan at the time, for example, really did like him. He liked seeing him in interviews. He felt he was a personality he enjoyed, and therefore he had a far more positive thinking about him joining. So I kind of thought, yeah, it must be that. It must be that I just look at that guy and think, nah, I don't like him. Which is the old halo horn effect for anyone who was into business studies. My initial concerns were, the club stated we're letting Ange go because we need a manager who can compete in all competitions. Ange, as we know, made the decision to knock the league campaign to go and win the Europa League trophy. He had attempted to win the League Cup, but, knocked out the semi-final stage. Which everyone forgets, by the way, we got to that stage of that. But anyway, the sheer weight of injuries, to me, anyway, and the fact we couldn't get relegated because the bottom 3 were so shite, it made sense to me, that decision. Like, I can actually see the logic in that, because at that point, after January, when the hierarchy of the club didn't spend to back him, they'd obviously made their decision, they didn't rate him. He then was in that position of making that call. He made the call, and it turned out to be the right one. Like, it could so easily have been the wrong one, and, he looked an idiot, but it was the right one. Not only did that secure the first trophy for the club in a long time, it secured Champions League football, which is the goal at the start of the season. Because he achieved that via winning the Europa League and not finishing 4th or 5th as it would have been last season, he's openly mocked for it, and the club are openly mocked for being 17th in the league. I'm still baffled by that, but that's the reality of it. Thomas Frank coming in, he had literally never ever managed a 4 competition season in his career. Now that's not me being critical of him in that, because he's never had the opportunity. But to say we're getting rid of this man because we want someone who has the ability to compete on all fronts, and then appointing someone who's literally never done that, doesn't make sense. And so I sort of had that of like, okay, I'm a bit annoyed we got rid of Ange because I felt proper back in, players return fit, a good summer transfer window, and suddenly we could really kick on. Season 3 is better than season 2. But they made the decision to make that change, which I didn't agree with, but okay, you've given us the rationale, and then you've appointed someone who literally has no history of doing that. So my concerns came in from there, really, which is never managed in Europe, and you're giving in the Champions League straight away. That's okay. All right, okay. Never managed a 4 competition season with a squad before. Okay, right. Okay, that's going to be interesting how he handles that. And then you got the fact that you look at Brentford and they were a mid-table side, which for that club, building every season on season is excellent. Like that is like you look at where they've come from as a club, you look at the promotion, you got them into the Premier League, and then has established them as a Premier League side. That mid-table finish every season for Brentford is brilliant because it's enabling them to build. They're recruiting well. They sell players at the right time. The money they are building as a club, and by staying established in the Premier League, they are doing that. They're doing really well. You then look at this season, for example. Do they look like a side that have gone backwards since losing Thomas Frank? They are way above us in the league, by the way. To answer that question is no, they do not. So you have to question, okay, so how much of that was Thomas Frank? How much of it was very good recruitment? How much was it was a very good setup at the club? A la Brighton as well, like two very well established. Bournemouth as well. Those are 3 clubs, all beginning with B. Conspiracy or Conspiracy B? Anyway, very well run, and they're run well, managed well, recruitment's very good, and that makes a massive, massive difference. So Thomas Frank is at Tottenham. I look at the squad of players we got and I think they are massively, massively underperforming. Even compared to last season. Like the Opta do these incredible stat breakdowns on every player for the seasons, and every one of them's not performing as well as they did last year. Like it's insane the drop off. And it's only down to tactics and what they're being told to do, like progressive passing and things like that. We are the lowest in the league, so rock bottom for playing through balls, to play an offensive passing in. The top 2 teams for that in the league are Arsenal and Man City, who are the top 2 teams in the league. So playing that style of football, trying to get the ball through, playing offensive football, is what works. And we are rock bottom of that table, below Wolves, by a margin, by the way. And it's just awful. It's like what you're seeing with your eyes is what's going on. So, yeah. Do I feel vindicated? Sorry, I've gone off on an absolute tangent. I guess yes and no. I don't feel vindicated in the sense of I don't feel like everyone is now completely, you're right, Sam, he's an asshole, no one likes him. But I do feel like my concerns that I expressed and a lot of people told me to shut up about, those same people are now saying the same things. So I guess, yeah, in a way, yeah, I do feel a bit vindicated. Thank you, Stacey. Number 2, what would Thomas Frank need to do to change your mind about him? And that's from Paul in London. If he resigned, admitting that he's out of his depth, I think he's a decent guy. Okay, so let's try and answer that sensibly. I'd like to see some sort of system, some sort of coached. I'd like to see something that isn't what we're seeing right now, which is defensive, boring, structured shite, which is just, to quote Dele Alli from the Amazon documentary, it's just kicking it fucking long and defending. That's literally how it is, and he would need to stop trying to gaslight the fans and talking shit about the club constantly. I honestly don't think there's anything he could do to change my opinion on him at this point. There's plenty of coaches in Tottenham's history I've not liked, as in I didn't rate them as coaches. The most famous one on this podcast I've discussed those times, AVB. I didn't like him at Chelsea. I thought he come across as like this arrogant little kid who had no reason to be there. We then appointed him on like a 5-year contract. I couldn't believe that. And in his first season, he had probably Gareth Bale in his prime. I know he went to Real Madrid and had a couple of incredible seasons, but that first season with AVB in charge, doing it in the Premier League, I think Bale was unplayable. He was at his absolute best. And the tactics really were give it to Gareth. And when Gareth went and we didn't have that, it was suddenly, he got found out. But I'd like to point out that even these coaches that I, didn't necessarily rate, I didn't dislike AVB. Like, he didn't talk shit about the club in every single interview and stuff like that. Jose Mourinho at Tottenham was a weird thing. Like, I tried to get on board with that so badly. And he at least was pretty entertaining sometimes. And one of the things he said early on, and to his credit, I think he was right, which is, I'm now at Tottenham. I live and breathe Tottenham. Like, this is, I'm here to, do that. And I genuinely think he did. The problem is he's also very performative. So that Amazon documentary, for example, that was him in his element. I get to go and do these big speeches in front of a camera, and I get to say this and I get to do that, and I get to tell all these players that they're too soft and all this kind of stuff. I think that was very much him in his element, and it just, none of it really worked. But, he had countless obstacles which he had to go, including the COVID season and stuff. You've then got Conte, who was the definition of gaslighting the club and just talking shit about his ego was so massive. You sort of knew from the minute we appointed him it was a ticking clock, like a bomb which was going to go off, because you'd seen it at every club he's ever been at, and you knew with Levy and the way we run our side that it was never going to end well, and it didn't. But I didn't dislike Conte. I understood the way he wanted to play. I understood how he felt we would score goals that way, and I saw it. Jose, I understood how he wanted to play. I understood how we'd score goals, and I saw it. I didn't dislike them, but I do dislike Thomas Frank. And nothing he's done has endeared him to me. Like, there's nothing he says in interviews. Last night at Bournemouth, he's walking around with an Arsenal cup. It doesn't really mean anything, it's not anything like that. But then he gets all fucking hostile in the interview when he's asked about, I can't believe I'm being asked about this is so stupid. It's not really, it's football fandom. You're the manager of Tottenham Hotspur, and you're walking around with a cup with an Arsenal logo on it. We are going to get bantered to shit with that. And it's just moronic. It's just like, you don't do it. Like, you see players signing stuff, and someone will put an Arsenal shirt in front of a Tottenham player. Sign this, and they're like, get fucked, because they know it's stupid. But then, of course, I mean, yeah, look, it ain't something I'm going to get wound up about. But it is just, all he had to do was go, do you know what? Yeah, that's been pointed out to me. I'm annoyed that I didn't notice it. Sorry, everyone. If I'd realised it had that logo on it, I obviously wouldn't have been walking around with it. Anyway, next question. Bang, done. That's it. And that's the end of it. And every fan just goes, yeah, fucking hell. Whoever that was that handed it to him's having a good laugh, and that's it. No, it's done. But to then go into the whole, why is it a big deal? It's like, well, it's probably a big deal right now because you just fucking lost again, you cretin. Anyway. Sorry, Paul. What could he do to change my mind? Genuinely, I think my first answer is the only one. If he resigns, I'd at least know he was a man of integrity who realised he was well out of his depth. Number 3. Is it the manager or are the players poor? And that's from Niall in Belfast. Niall, I am seeing this debate everywhere. From people I respect, like Coach Ali on Instagram, to people I don't necessarily respect, just on Twitter. all I can ever do is give an opinion, and it's contrary to people I respect, which is I think, okay, it's an opinion backed up by stats. If you go to the Opta website, you can go to individual stats and you can do comparisons on season. You can literally walk through our starting 11 of the players that are starting now, compare them to last season, and you can see offensively every metric is poor. Everything that can be measured shows that it's poor. That tells me two things. One, last season, if they could do it last season and all the problems we were having, try to play football, they have the ability. So that's not on the players. They are clearly being coached and drilled not to try these things, not to do these things. If that is the case, which it must be, because you don't just wake up one day and forget how to pass the football. You're a professional. You don't last season know how to play a through ball and this season not. The statistics, we are the lowest in the league for playing through balls, attempting through balls. Therefore, we're the lowest in the league for scoring at these situations. We just nearly went 10 hours without a goal from open play. All of these stats back up the fact that our system and our tactics are shite. Because that didn't happen last year. Like, we scored regularly. Everyone forgets, we had a lot of reverses. We lost a lot last season. We went practically, I think, until like the end of January, where it was middle of January, we hadn't lost a game by more than one goal. So whether we lost 3-2, 2-1, 1-0, it was never 1-0. We scored in every single game for bloody ages until Thomas Frank took over. The point is, we were always an offensive threat. We just couldn't keep teams out. And if you look at the injuries we had, it's no real surprise we couldn't keep teams out. But we kept trying to play our football. People called Ange naive for that. Like I said earlier, for a time I kind of bought into that myself. But now I'm watching this, I'd give anything to be a bit naive and to be trying to play football. I would rather try to play football and fail than play this negative shit and succeed. Because what is succeeding with this negative shit right now? It's not. It's just so awful. So I don't know. I can't say with any certainty. I would, like Coach Ali, I really respect her opinion. This is someone who's coached at all sorts of levels. She's got a fantastic insight. I enjoy reading her opinion piece in the BBC. I enjoy following her on social media with her reviews on Tottenham, her sort of mini match vlogs and stuff. I don't always agree, but I always like to listen because it's someone I like listening to smart people, and she is definitely that when it comes to football. I'm sure she's other things as well, but it's only football I know her from. So I disagree with her on that, but that's fine. We're both adults. We can do that. I'm sure she'd argue with me and tell me why I'm wrong, and I'm sure I'd argue with her and tell her why she's wrong. But I walk through the team, I look at them, and I think, no, the individual players there are still capable and decent players. A better coach makes them suddenly look incredible. And I'm just going to say this, which pains me because it's the Pochettino thing. I cannot think of a coach that has had a bigger impact on players than Pochettino, because every player who does well under him suddenly looks a little bit lost when they're away from him. Like his system, the way he coaches, the way he develops players. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a hard and fast rule because there are obviously exceptions. Harry Kane, etc., looked sensational in the Farmers League he now plays in, etc. But people buy into that. He has a system and a way of doing it. You know, that Southampton team he built, the minute those players all got sold for big money, none of them really went on. Like Schneiderlin disappeared up his own ass. Lambert got his big move, cashed in. That was him done. So many, it just kind of went away and drifted. Whereas with that Southampton team, when he had it, it just looked unbelievable. Tottenham, Danny Rose, people didn't rate him as a fullback at all. Became probably the best left back in Europe for a couple of seasons under Pochettino. Carl Walker, constantly derided for his mistakes he made, became probably the best right back in Europe. Toby and Jan, best centre backs in the league for 3 seasons, consistently. Lloris, fantastic keeper, won the World Cup. Dembele, largely no one knew how to get the best out of him. Pochettino came in and said, right, this is your role. Best midfielder in Europe for a couple of seasons. Eric Dyer, young central defender. No one really knew what to do with. Club signed him as a prospect, turned him into the best defensive midfielder for a year. You just look at the impact a good coach can have on players, and then you look at the impact that this shit coach is having on decent players. And yeah, anyway, so no, I don't think it. I do think it's the coach. Number 4, do you miss Levy yet? That's from Lucy in London. Yes and no, Lucy. I don't miss the Levy show because Daniel Levy is the reason we have Thomas Frank. His moronic approach to football governorship was frustrating beyond all belief. Him celebrating appointing Ange as we've got our Tottenham back. This is the way Tottenham need to play football. This is brilliant. And then sacking him and appointing this anti-football asshole summed Daniel Levy up. And yes, just for the record, it was Daniel Levy who appointed him before he got the boot himself. So I don't miss him from that point of view, but I do think Levy would have fired him by now. So I do miss that. Yeah, thank you, Lucy. Number 5, would you sign Palhinha or Kolomoani permanently after what you've seen so far? That's from Jeffrey in London. Well, that's a tough one. The only reason why that's tough is because of the age of Palhinha. So Palhinha's 30. I think probably in the Premier League, in the position he plays, depending on his fitness, of course, that's 2 to 4 years probably. I'd probably say yes to Palhinha because I think any good coach would want to have a player like him in their squad. I rate him. I mean, he's still the highest tackle count in the league, which, when you consider he's been getting dropped on a regular basis recently, is still sensational. So Palhinha is probably a definite yes for me because I think, like, again, going to Pochettino or a coach coming in with a system where you need someone who's disciplined, and most of them do require that. Pep Guardiola's system, Arteta's system, Slot, all of them, you do require someone who's disciplined, and he is arguably one of the best in the league at that. So, yes, I would keep Palhinha. Kolomoani, probably not. I like him. I think there's something about him. He's a very, very good player. I think physically he can suit the Premier League as well. But I don't think... It's difficult again because I don't know how much of this is the Thomas Frank effect, but I don't think he's scored or been as much of a goal threat as he needs to be to justify. But then we're not really creating a lot, so it's difficult. So Palhinha is a definite yes. Kolomoani, I'd need to see more. That's probably my answer there. Thank you, Jeff, or Jeffrey, as you wrote. Number 6, did you get any Tottenham Christmas gifts from Luke in London? I did, yes. I have a Tottenham wall planner with players we've now sold on, which made me laugh. And I have a diary, Tottenham-themed diary, which has got a on this day thing for every single day throughout the year. Some of them are really good, some of them are just bizarre, like, on this day in 1974 we played Bolton, yay. It's like, cheers, awesome. So yeah, I did. Number 7, could you see us making a change mid-season? And that's from Yingli in Seoul. I'm hoping I'm saying your name right, apologies if I'm not. I hope we do, because my fear is that Vinay, the Arsenal man, feels that Arsenal sticking with Arteta is proof that if you stick with one coach, even whilst it's shite at the start, it will come good eventually. This is a philosophy which works when you have a coach where you can actually understand the footballing philosophy they're trying to develop. if you're telling me that Thomas Frank is the football philosophy that this club wants, I may need to agree a loan deal and go out and support another team until the guy's gone, because it is awful. Like, if this is the football we look at and go, yeah, this is what we want to be, this is Tottenham, this is Oderes Fekir, this is to dare is to do, it's bullshit and it's awful. So my fear is that actually all the wrong lessons are being learned as per fucking usual with this club, and we are going to back this guy and then rethink it in the summer if people are available that might improve us. The problem is that Chelsea have already made a managerial change very, very quickly. Manchester United are now actively looking for someone as well. We as a club are just not a good proposition. In fact, the only chance we'd have to lure someone who's a good coach would be with serious financial package and backing. And let's face it, the Lewis family, which are just a rebranded same ownership as we've always had, just will not do that. So yeah, no, I want us to make a change desperately. I want us to redirect this club, get someone in who does know how to manage us and get us playing good football, and back that person. And that's what we need desperately. The next one, question number 8, is what is going on with Paratici? That's from Rob in Ipswich. I can only read between the lines on this. I've got no insight at all, but it was widely reported in Italy he'd accepted a role at Fiorentina. He'd accepted a 5-year contract, wasn't happy working in the new structure at Tottenham. People who have got a good insight at Spurs said that Daniel Levy basically offered him the deal before Levy was removed. The club had to honour it, if you like, and he was happy coming into this structure on the basis that Langer would concentrate on identifying these younger players, and Paratici would have more of an insight into signing the first team players, but also would be, in essence, the person doing the negotiations. He would take that role on, which Daniel Levy always did himself. That kind of made sense to me. I understood that. Paratici had done that role himself at Juventus for many years, doing the negotiations. So this is someone very experienced with great contacts all across European football. And Lang had proven himself as being very, very good at identifying these young players who are fantastic prospects. And so the two of them working together, I was like, okay, I can see the logic to that. It's kind of Daniel Levy did a lot of things in the club himself. He was very hands-on, and now we're kind of sharing those responsibilities out, creating the structure. Well, apparently Paratici hasn't enjoyed working with the people he's working with, doesn't feel it fits him, and therefore has negotiated a way to a new team. However, being the January transfer window, he appears to not be doing anything. He appears to still be at Spurs. He hasn't left at the time of me saying this, as I'm recording anyway. So reading between the lines, I'm wondering if perhaps he's working his notice, and after the January window, he'll go and take on his new role elsewhere. But I could be completely wrong. I don't know. That there is no greater insight on that, I'm afraid. Question 9 is, who would you sign in January to help us? That's from Clive in Cornwall. A new head coach. I don't know who that could be, but someone who wants us to play football and not this dire, drab crap I'm watching constantly. I think more than any player, that is the change I'd make in January. And finally, number 10 says, can we blame Frank when last season was also so bad? That's from Tom in London. Yes, we can, and yes, I do. I think... Okay, so to try and answer this sensibly, can we blame Frank when last season was so bad? There is an ongoing debate I see amongst very sensible people who, again, I like to listen to and I respect, which is that by Postecoglou abandoning the league, it created a mentality within the squad that the league doesn't matter. I find that difficult to wrap my head around. Like, I can understand the players and Ange having a meeting and being like, right, we are going to prioritise this because that enables us to get our goals. We're not going down. But the idea that a very, very competitive manager, a very, very competitive group of sports people were deliberately losing or not trying, that doesn't stack up to me. And it also doesn't stack up to me that when you then achieve that goal, like, okay, that worked, you then, in the following season, you're like, it's the league, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's a nonsense, because the kind of, everything's kind of done. You reset, you come into pre-season, you're ready to go. It's fresh. It's like, it's your opportunity to put the narrative that the press and the journalists have had with you to bed. You know, you can kind of be like, right, okay. I think the change in manager didn't help that, actually. I think Ange coming back in, I think one of his initial talks with the squad would have been, right, we're together again. Most of you are fit right now. Like, this is where we ram our football down people's throats and, you know, we show them what we're about. And he'd have said mate a few times, probably dropped a few F and C bombs in there. But I think the squad would have been ignited by that and be like, yeah, you're right. This is, you know, let's show them what we can do when we're all together and we're all fit. A few new faces, you know, it would have worked well. Again, the irony for me is, like, you look at Kudus and you look at Xavi and Palhinha, those three alone. Imagine if they'd been signed last January, not in the summer. The impact they would have had on our season would have been unbelievable under Ange. Xavi and Kudus under Ange, wow, would they have been special. Palhinha under Ange was the player he was crying out for. So you look at that and it seems to me, someone said this to me, is we always do things one window or one season too late. And I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, those signings in the summer, if they'd happened in January, would have made an insane impact on our season. But, you know, it's what they were. I don't think we were that bad this last season. I don't think the narrative... I think we were... Injury ripped us apart. I think Ange was sold short with the squad size. I think the management, the senior management of the club, hung yet another coach out to dry. And I fear the lesson they've learned from that is they're going to back this new guy who plays absolute murder ball shite, and they're just going to keep backing him blindly. I am just going to double check the old news algorithms in case I'm saying all of this and he's been sacked, because that'd be hilarious. But I fear I'm not that lucky. Just going to have a look now. Scrolly. No, he's still in the job. Yeah. Okay. Let's crack on then. So that is the show for this week. Thank you so much for everybody who always emails in. You can email in. It's sam@spursnews.co.uk. An easy one to remember. You can also always get in touch via any of the social media. Instagram, you get to speak to lovely Laura, who, by the way, is beautiful. Breathtakingly beautiful woman. Not that that should matter, of course, but, you know, you can just drop her a message and just say, hey, I hear you're quite beautiful. That'd wind her up. In fact, she's probably not even listening. Send a message via her Instagram and start with, hey, Laura, wow, can't believe you did that. Sam said about it on the podcast. Just say something like that, because that'd drive her insane, because she knows what I'm like, and she'll then go into like a panic and listen to the whole show. And then she'll get to this bit and be like, son of a bitch. So do that for me. That'll make me laugh. You can get in touch via Twitter. I know Elon renamed it, but I'm not doing it. So I do that. We have a TikTok. You can do that, which is kind of sat dormant at the moment, because TikTok for me is always about more like sort of jokey, funny stuff. And there's just nothing for me to joke or be funny about at the moment. Of course, there's the Facebook page. Always, you can drop a message there. And I think that's it for once. I think that's the Empire. Yes, that is the Spurs News Empire. So, yeah, get in touch. Let us know what you were thinking. We will respond always. Until next week, when it's no longer a solo show, you all take care, and fingers crossed for the FA Cup this weekend. I love that competition, but part of me is just dreading the game. We play Aston Villa, it's at home, but yeah, keeping everything crossed for that, because I could do with something to lift the spirits. Until next time, everybody, so long.
Thank you for listening to the Spurs News Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Stay up to date with all things Tottenham. Follow us on social media. All links are in the podcast description.